When the hospital lights died and the monitors went black, Maya Lane realized she was about to give birth completely alone, in the middle of a catastrophic storm, with no father listed, no family called, and secrets buried so deep they could destroy everything. But 8 years later, those secrets would surface in the worst possible way. When the most dangerous man she'd ever loved appeared at her son's school, proving that some truths can't stay hidden forever, and some men won't stop until they reclaim what's theirs. If you're hooked, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. Now let's begin. The storm hit Crescent Bay like a fist through glass. Maya Lane stood at the window of Mercy General Hospital's third-floor waiting room, watching the ocean turn violent. Rain hammered the glass in sheets so thick the world beyond disappeared into gray chaos. Thunder rolled across the sky in waves that shook the building's foundation. Somewhere in the distance, transformers exploded in brilliant blue flashes, and the city began going dark sector by sector. She pressed one hand against the window, the other against her swollen belly, and tried to breathe through the contraction tightening like a vice around her middle. "You shouldn't be up," a voice said behind her. Maya turned to find Nurse Iris Chen, mid-50s, steel-gray hair pulled back in a severe bun, eyes that missed nothing, standing in the doorway with a wheelchair. "I can't sit still," Maya said, her voice tight. "The contractions are getting closer." "I know." Iris moved into the room with the calm efficiency of someone who'd delivered 1,000 babies and feared nothing. "That's why you need to be in a delivery room, not watching the apocalypse." Maya almost laughed. Almost. But another contraction hit, and she doubled over, gripping the window frame. Iris was there immediately, strong hands supporting her. "Breathe, honey. In through your nose, out through your mouth. That's it." When the pain ebbed, Maya straightened slowly. "How bad is it? The storm, I mean." "Bad enough that we've sent non-essential staff home and we're running on generators." Iris guided her toward the wheelchair. "But we've been through worse. You're safe here." Safe. The word felt like a lie in Maya's mouth. She'd spent 9 months running from safety, hiding from it, because safety had teeth and a beautiful, deadly smile. She lowered herself into the wheelchair, and Iris began pushing her down the hallway. The hospital had an eerie quality in the storm's grip, fluorescent lights flickering, the usual bustle replaced by tense efficiency. Staff moved quickly, quietly, preparing for emergencies. "How far apart are the contractions?" Iris asked. 4 minutes, maybe less. "And you're sure there's no one we should call? No family? No one." Maya's voice came out harder than she intended. She softened it. "It's just me and the baby." Iris didn't press. That was one of the things Maya appreciated about her. In the 3 weeks since Maya had shown up at Mercy General with nothing but a hastily packed bag and cash for the delivery, Iris had asked the bare minimum of questions. She'd taken one look at Maya, 8 months pregnant, exhausted, clearly running from something, and simply said, "Let's get you registered." The registration had been minimal. Maya Lane, 28 years old, no permanent address, no insurance, no father listed, cash payment. Iris had processed it all without judgment, and when the administrator had pushed for more information, Iris had shut it down with a look that could freeze fire. Now, as they moved through the hospital's increasingly chaotic corridors, Maya wondered if Iris suspected the truth. If she knew that Maya Lane wasn't even Maya's real name, that the baby's father wasn't absent, he was dangerous. That Maya had spent the last 9 months erasing herself from existence because loving Damien Voss meant living in his shadow, and shadows in his world had a habit of swallowing people whole. They reached the delivery wing just as the lights flickered and died. For 3 heartbeats, the world went pitch black. Maya's breath caught. Then the emergency generators kicked in, bathing everything in harsh, stuttering light. "Backup power," Iris said calmly, though Maya noticed her grip tighten on the wheelchair handles. "We're fine." But Maya could hear the uncertainty in the hospital now. Raised voices, hurried footsteps, the mechanical wheeze of generators struggling to compensate. Through a window, she glimpsed the city below. Vast sections completely dark, streetlights dead, only the occasional car headlight cutting through the storm. Iris wheeled her into a delivery room and helped her onto the bed. The room was small, sterile, equipped with the standard monitors and instruments. Everything looked normal, except for the lights. They flickered constantly, casting unstable shadows. "Let me check your progress," Iris said, pulling on gloves. Maya lay back, staring at the ceiling tiles while Iris conducted the examination. Another contraction built, and she gripped the bed rails, breathing through it. "You're at 7 centimeters, Iris announced. "Moving fast. I'll page Dr. Morrison." "Is he here? In the hospital?" "She. Dr. Sarah Morrison. And yes, she's on tonight." Iris moved to the wall phone, lifted it, frowned, and pressed the button several times. "Phone's dead. I'll find her myself. Don't go anywhere." She disappeared into the hallway, leaving Maya alone with the flickering lights and the sound of rain hammering the windows. Maya closed her eyes and let herself remember, just for a moment, the last time she'd felt safe. 10 months earlier, a different city, a different life. Maya had been working the evening shift at Lacey's, an upscale restaurant where the tips were good and the clientele were better at pretending their money was legitimate. She'd been a server there for 2 years, good enough at her job that management left her alone, invisible enough that the regulars didn't bother learning her name. Then Damien Voss walked in. She'd known who he was immediately. Everyone in the city knew the Voss name: old money, real estate empire, connections that ran through every level of power. What people whispered about was everything beneath the surface: the businesses that operated in the spaces between legal and not, the protection that money couldn't buy but fear could, the way problems disappeared when Damien Voss wanted them gone. He'd been seated in her section, dark suit, darker eyes, the kind of presence that made the air feel heavier. His associate, a mountain of a man named Victor, sat across from him, but Damien's attention fixed on Maya the moment she approached. "Good evening," she'd said, falling into her professional script. "Can I start you gentlemen with drinks?" "McAllen 25, Damien said. His voice was low, controlled, the kind of voice that expected obedience. "Neat." "And for you, sir?" Maya asked Victor. "Same." She'd brought the drinks, taken their orders, moved through her routine with practiced ease, but she'd felt Damien watching her, not leering, nothing that crude, just watching, studying. When she'd brought their food, he'd spoken. "You're new." "I've worked here 2 years." "Then I haven't been paying attention." He'd smiled then, and Maya had felt something shift in her chest. "I'm correcting that now." She should have walked away, should have kept the professional distance she maintained with every customer. Instead, she'd said, "Is that a threat or a promise?" His smile had widened. "Which would you prefer?" That was how it started. A conversation that lasted 3 minutes but felt like 30. An exchange of names, hers probably fake even then, his carrying weight that made her pulse quicken. An invitation to dinner that she should have refused, she'd accepted. The next 6 months were a blur of intensity Maya had never experienced. Damien pursued her with the same focused determination he applied to everything, completely, without hesitation, as if she were a prize worth claiming. And Maya, who'd spent her adult life staying invisible, found herself seen in ways that terrified and thrilled her. He took her to restaurants where they didn't have menus, just chefs who prepared whatever he requested. To private clubs where champagne flowed and everyone seemed to know him, but no one approached unless invited. To his penthouse overlooking the city, where floor-to-ceiling windows made her feel like they were floating above the world. He never hid what he was, never pretended his money came from legitimate sources alone. But he also never brought violence to her door. He kept her separate, protected, a part of his life that remained untouched by the darkness. "You're different from everyone else," he told her once, lying in his bed at 3 a.m, his fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. "Everyone wants something from me. Money, power, protection. You just want me." "Is that so hard to believe?" Maya had asked. "Yes." His voice had gone quiet. "Because I'm not sure there's enough me left under everything else." She'd kissed him then, and for a while they'd both stopped talking. Maya had known it couldn't last. She'd known that loving Damien Voss meant accepting a certain amount of danger, that his world had rules she didn't understand and consequences she couldn't predict. But she hadn't expected pregnancy. The test had been positive on a Tuesday morning. She'd stared at the 2 pink lines in her bathroom, feeling her entire world tilt. She'd spent the whole day trying to figure out how to tell Damien, rehearsing conversations, imagining outcomes. She'd never gotten the chance. That night, Victor had shown up at her apartment alone. His face had been grim, and Maya's stomach had dropped before he'd even spoken. "Damien's gone," Victor had said. "There was an ambush, coordinated attack. I got him out, but barely. He's alive, but he can't come back. Not for a while. Maybe never." "Where is he?" "I can't tell you that. He can't contact you, Maya. If his enemies think you matter to him, they'll use you. You need to disappear. Tonight." "I'm pregnant." Victor had closed his eyes. "Does he know?" "No." "Don't tell him. Don't contact him. If you love him, disappear and stay disappeared. It's the only way to keep you both safe." He'd given her cash, enough to start over, and an envelope with a single burner phone number. "Emergency only. If you use it, burn it immediately after." Then he'd left, and Maya had sat in her apartment staring at the positive pregnancy test and the stack of cash, trying to figure out how her life had become a crime thriller. She'd left that night, took only what fit in 2 bags, left no forwarding address, and drove until her car ran out of gas in a small coastal town called Haven's Rest. She'd sold the car, rented a tiny apartment, and started building a new life from scratch. And she'd never contacted Damien, not when the pregnancy got difficult, not when she'd felt terrifyingly alone at 3 in the morning, wondering if she could do this, not even when the baby kicked for the first time and she'd wanted so badly to share that moment with someone who would understand what it meant. Because Victor had been right. Loving Damien Voss meant accepting that some loves were too dangerous to sustain, that some children were safer never knowing their fathers, that some secrets had to stay buried. But Maya opened her eyes as another contraction hit, this one stronger than the others. She gripped the bed rails and breathed through it, counting seconds until it passed. The lights flickered again. Through the window, she could see the storm intensifying, wind bending trees nearly horizontal, rain coming down in solid walls. The generators made a grinding sound that didn't inspire confidence. Iris returned with Dr. Morrison, a woman in her early 40s with tired eyes and steady hands. She wore scrubs and an expression of professional calm that barely masked concern. "Maya, I'm Dr. Morrison. Iris tells me you're progressing quickly." She moved to the bed, checking the monitors that were struggling to maintain stable readings. "How are you feeling?" "Like I'm about to give birth in a disaster movie," Maya said. Dr. Morrison smiled. "Fair assessment. Let me examine you." The examination was quick, efficient. When Dr. Morrison finished, her expression had shifted to something more urgent. "You're at 9 centimeters. This baby's coming fast." She looked at Iris. "Get the delivery kit ready and find out what's happening with the generators." Iris nodded and disappeared again. Dr. Morrison pulled up a stool beside the bed. "Maya, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. The storm's worse than expected, and our backup power is unstable. We're equipped to handle delivery, but if complications arise, we might have limited options." "What kind of complications?" "The usual concerns: hemorrhaging, fetal distress, need for emergency intervention. Under normal circumstances, we'd have full power, full staff, full resources. Tonight, we have what we have." Maya felt fear spike through her, sharp and cold. "Can we wait? Until the power's more stable?" "Babies don't wait for convenient timing," Dr. Morrison said gently. "And from what I'm seeing, this one's coming whether we're ready or not." Another contraction hit, and this time Maya couldn't suppress the cry that escaped her. The pain was different now, deeper, more insistent, her body taking over with an agenda of its own. Dr. Morrison checked the monitor. "That's normal. Your body's doing what it needs to do." Iris returned, pushing a cart loaded with supplies. "Generators are holding, but barely. Main hospital's on limited power. They're prioritizing ICU and surgery." "We're on our own then," Dr. Morrison said. It wasn't a question. Not the first time. Iris began arranging instruments with practiced efficiency. Not the last. The next hour dissolved into a blur of pain and pressure, and the 2 women's steady voices guiding Maya through something her body seemed to know how to do without her conscious mind's input. The lights continued flickering. The storm continued raging. And Maya pushed when they told her to push, breathed when they told her to breathe, and tried not to think about the fact that she was bringing a child into the world completely alone. "I can see the head," Dr. Morrison announced. "Maya, next contraction. I need you to push hard. Can you do that?" Maya nodded, too exhausted for words. The contraction built like a wave, and she pushed with everything she had left. The pressure was enormous, overwhelming, and then, "That's it!" Iris exclaimed. "Heads out! One more, honey, one more, and you meet your baby." Maya gathered herself for one final push. She thought about Damien, wherever he was. Thought about the life she'd built alone in Haven's Rest. Thought about all the secrets she'd kept and all the lies she'd told. And then she pushed, and the world exploded into a sound she'd never heard before. Her baby's first cry. Dr. Morrison lifted a small, squirming, blood-covered infant and placed him on Maya's chest. "It's a boy," she said softly. "A healthy, beautiful boy." Maya's hands came up automatically, cradling the tiny body against her. He was impossibly small, impossibly perfect, screaming his fury at the world with lungs that worked just fine. She felt tears streaming down her face as she stared at him. He had Damien's nose, his chin, dark hair plastered to his skull. "Hi," Maya whispered. "Hi, baby. I'm your mom." The baby's cries quieted slightly at the sound of her voice. His eyes, dark, unfocused, seemed to search for her. Iris draped a warm blanket over them both. "What's his name?" Maya hadn't let herself think about names, hadn't let herself plan that far ahead. But looking at him now, feeling the weight of him in her arms, one name rose to the surface. "Eli," she said. "His name is Eli. Eli Lane, a clean name, a safe name, a name with no connection to Damien Voss or the world he inhabited." Doctor Morrison finished the delivery, checked Maya for complications, and declared everything normal. Iris cleaned and weighed Eli, 7 pounds, 3 ounces, then returned him to Maya's arms. "You did great," Iris said. "Both of you." Maya cradled Eli close, breathing in the newborn smell of him, feeling his tiny heart beating against her chest. Outside, the storm raged on, but in this small room, everything felt still, quiet, almost peaceful. "The birth certificate," Maya said suddenly. "I need to sit." "We'll handle it in the morning," Iris interrupted gently. "For now, just rest." But Maya couldn't rest. Not yet. "The father section, it needs to stay blank." Dr. Morrison and Iris exchanged a glance. "Maya," Dr. Morrison said carefully, "we need to ask. Is there any danger? Anyone we should be concerned about?" "No." Maya shook her head. "There's no one, it's just us." Another lie. But one she had to tell, for Eli's sake. Iris seemed to read something in Maya's face. She moved closer, her voice dropping low. "If you need help disappearing, really disappearing, I know people." Maya looked up sharply. "What?" "I've been doing this a long time, honey. I've seen women in situations they couldn't talk about. Women who needed to vanish for their own safety, for their children's safety." Iris glanced at Dr. Morrison, who tactfully moved to the other side of the room. "If that's your situation, I can help. No questions asked." Maya felt something crack open in her chest. "Why would you do that?" "Because every child deserves a chance to grow up safe," Iris said simply. "And because I can." For a long moment, Maya just held Eli, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on her. She thought about Damien, about Victor's warning, about the life she'd left behind. She thought about the life she could give Eli if no one ever knew who his father was. "I need the record sealed," Maya said quietly. "No father listed, minimal information, and I need to leave as soon as I can travel." Iris nodded. "I'll take care of it. The storm will buy us time. Everything's chaos right now. Records are a mess. The system's running on emergency protocols. By the time things settle, you'll just be another birth that happened during the blackout." "Thank you," Maya whispered. Iris squeezed her shoulder. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we'll figure out the details." She and Dr. Morrison left, closing the door quietly behind them. Maya was alone with her son. She looked down at Eli, who had fallen asleep against her chest, his tiny fist curled against her skin. He looked so peaceful, so innocent, so completely unaware that his existence was built on secrets and lies and love so dangerous it could destroy them both. "I'm sorry," Maya whispered to him. "I'm sorry your father isn't here. I'm sorry you'll grow up without him. I'm sorry for all of it." But she wasn't sorry for keeping him safe. She'd do anything to keep him safe, even if it meant Damien could never know his son existed. The lights flickered again, and for a moment the room went completely dark. Maya held Eli tighter, her heart racing. Then the generators caught, and the harsh emergency lighting returned. Through the window, she could see the first hints of dawn breaking through the storm clouds. The rain was starting to ease, the thunder growing more distant. The worst of the storm was passing. Maya closed her eyes and let herself sleep, her son warm and safe against her heart, and tried not to think about the storms that might still be coming. 3 days later, when the hospital systems were still recovering and the city was still digging out from the damage, Maya signed the discharge papers and walked out with Eli and a carrier she'd bought from a hospital volunteer. The birth certificate listed only one parent, Maya Lane. No father, no medical history beyond what was absolutely necessary. Minimal footprint in a system overwhelmed by storm-related chaos. Iris had been true to her word. She'd buried the paperwork deep, misfiled the records, and ensured that anyone looking for a birth during that specific window would have to dig through thousands of entries to find Eli's. "Where will you go?" Iris asked as Maya prepared to leave. "Somewhere quiet," Maya said. "Somewhere no one asks questions." Iris pressed a piece of paper into her hand. "If you ever need help, real help, call this number. Friend of mine. She's helped women like you before." Maya pocketed the number. "Thank you for everything." "Take care of that boy," Iris said. "He's something special." Maya looked down at Eli, sleeping peacefully in his carrier. "He is." She walked out of Mercy General Hospital into a bright, clear morning, the storm now just a memory recorded in fallen trees and broken windows. She'd arranged for a rental car, paid cash for a month in advance at a motel across town. In a few days, when Eli was strong enough to travel, she'd leave the city entirely. She'd find that quiet place, that nowhere town, that life where Maya Lane could be just another single mom struggling to make it, and Eli could be just another kid with no father in the picture. She could give him that. A normal life. A safe life. Even if it meant living with the ghost of Damien Voss in every feature of their son's face. Maya strapped Eli's carrier into the rental car's back seat, triple-checking the installation. She slid behind the wheel, adjusted the mirrors, and took one last look at the hospital in the rearview mirror. Then she drove away, heading toward a future built on absence and silence, and tried to convince herself it was enough. But late at night, when Eli cried and Maya rocked him in the darkness of anonymous motel rooms, she would sometimes let herself remember Damien's voice, his touch, the way he'd looked at her like she was the only real thing in his world. And she would whisper apologies to both of them, the man she'd loved and the son who would never know him, and promise herself that this sacrifice was worth it, that keeping them separate would keep them safe, that some loves were too dangerous to sustain, but that didn't make them any less real. Maya drove through the dawn with her infant son sleeping in the back seat, leaving behind the city where they'd both been born into chaos, and headed toward whatever quiet life she could build from the wreckage of everything that came before. The storm was over. But Maya knew, in the deepest part of her heart, that storms like the one she'd survived never really ended. They just went quiet for a while, waiting. Haven's Rest was the kind of town people passed through without noticing. A strip of weathered storefronts along a coastal highway, population 3,000, famous for nothing except being forgettable. It had a diner that served breakfast all day, an elementary school that fed into a regional middle school 20 miles away, and a general store run by a woman named Pearl who knew everyone's business but kept most of it to herself. Maya found a rental house 3 blocks from the ocean, small, drafty, with windows that rattled in the wind and plumbing that groaned at inconvenient hours. The landlord, a retired fisherman named Jim, asked for first and last month's rent in cash and didn't bother with references. "You running from something?" he'd asked, direct as a hammer. "Bad relationship," Maya had answered, which was true enough in the ways that mattered. Jim had nodded like he'd heard it before. "Town's quiet. People mind their business. You need anything fixed? Call me. Otherwise, I'll leave you alone." That was 8 years ago. Now, Maya stood in the same kitchen where she'd heated Eli's first bottle, watching her son eat cereal at the table while morning light streamed through windows she'd learned to weatherproof herself. Eli had grown into a lean 8-year-old with dark hair that never laid flat and eyes that saw too much. He sat with perfect posture, reading the back of the cereal box with the kind of focus most kids reserved for video games. You're going to memorize the ingredients, Maya said, pouring coffee into a chipped mug. Already did. Eli didn't look up. Did you know there's more sugar in this than in a candy bar? That's why it tastes good. That's why it's bad for you, Eli corrected. He finally looked up, and Maya's heart did what it always did when she caught him at certain angles, stumbled over the resemblance to Damien. Can we get the one with the whole grains instead? Since when do you care about whole grains? Since I read that processed carbohydrates cause inflammation and decrease cognitive function. He said it matter-of-factly, like he was discussing the weather. Maya sipped her coffee and wondered, not for the first time, if 8-year-olds were supposed to talk like tiny nutritionists. Eli had always been like this, observant, precise, intense in ways that made other kids keep their distance. The teachers called him gifted and advanced and suggested programs for talented students in larger districts. Maya smiled and declined and kept him exactly where he was, in a small school in a forgettable town where nobody looked too closely. Finish your inflammatory breakfast, Maya said. Bus comes in 10 minutes. Eli ate dutifully while Maya packed his lunch, sandwich, apple, carrots, the chocolate chip cookies she'd baked last night, because even health-conscious 8-year-olds deserved something sweet. She watched him from the corner of her eye, this small person she'd built a life around, and felt the familiar weight of everything he didn't know pressing against her chest. He didn't know his father's name, didn't know his father existed. The few times he'd asked about it, careful questions delivered with the same precision he applied to everything. Maya had given him a story worn smooth from repetition. Your father and I loved each other, but we couldn't be together. He doesn't know about you. It's safer that way. Eli had accepted it the way he accepted most things, with thoughtful consideration and no drama. He'd been 5 then. He hadn't asked again. But Maya saw the question sometimes in the way he studied other kids with their fathers, in the way he went quiet when families gathered at school events, in the way he'd once asked, "Do I look like him?" and then retreated when Maya's expression had given away too much. The bus horn honked outside. Eli grabbed his backpack, kissed Maya's cheek with the quick efficiency of someone who'd rather be reading, and headed for the door. "Eli," Maya called. He turned back. "I love you." He smiled, a real smile, the kind that made him look exactly like the 8-year-old he was instead of the 40-year-old he sometimes seemed. "Love you too, Mom." Then he was gone, and Maya was alone in the quiet house with her coffee and her secrets. She'd built a good life here. Not the life she'd imagined when she was young and stupid enough to think love could exist without consequences, but a good life nonetheless. She worked at the Havens Rest Community Center, managing programs for after-school care and senior activities. The pay was modest but steady, the work satisfying in simple ways. She'd made friends, careful friendships that didn't require deep history. She'd created routines that felt safe. And every night after Eli fell asleep, she allowed herself exactly 5 minutes to remember Damien, to wonder where he was, if he was alive, if he ever thought about the waitress who'd disappeared 8 years ago. Then she locked those thoughts away and focused on the present, because the present was all she could afford. Her phone buzzed, text from Shayna, her coworker at the community center. "Can you cover setup for seniors' lunch? Marcus called in sick." Maya texted back, "Sure, be there in 20. "B?" She rinsed her coffee mug, grabbed her keys, and headed out into a morning that felt exactly like every other morning in Havens Rest. Calm, predictable, safe. She had no way of knowing that 300 miles away, in a private office with bulletproof windows and security that made Fort Knox look accessible, a man was staring at a medical record that had just surfaced from a misfiled archive, and that the world she'd built was about to come apart. The Havens Rest Community Center occupied a converted church on Maple Street. The stained glass windows remained, casting colored light across the main hall, where seniors gathered for potluck lunches and kids came for after-school programs. Maya had worked there for 6 years, long enough that people stopped seeing her as the mysterious single mom and started seeing her as just Maya, reliable, quiet, good with the elderly residents who needed patient conversation, and the energetic kids who needed structured chaos. She spent the morning setting up tables and heating the donated casseroles that appeared like clockwork every Tuesday. The seniors arrived promptly at noon, a rotating cast of about 20 regulars who treated the lunch like a social event worthy of planning. Pearl from the general store held court at the center table, dispensing gossip with the precision of a news anchor. Did you hear the Hendersons are selling their house? Third one on that street this year. Property values must be going up. Or down, countered Frank, a retired postal worker who disagreed with Pearl on principle. People leaving usually means something's wrong. People leaving means they're retiring to Florida like sensible humans, Pearl shot back. Maya refilled coffee cups and half listened to the familiar arguments. This was the rhythm of Haven's Rest, small dramas, smaller stakes, nothing that required more than surface engagement. It was exactly what she needed. Her phone buzzed again. Text from the school. Eli had a minor incident at recess. He's fine. Please call when you have a moment. Maya's stomach dropped. She excused herself and stepped outside to call. The school secretary, Mrs. Patterson, answered on the second ring. Oh, Maya, don't worry. Eli's absolutely fine. There was just a small altercation at recess. What kind of altercation? Another student, Brandon Miller, you know him, tends toward the aggressive. He was bothering some of the younger kids. Eli intervened. Maya pinched the bridge of her nose. How did he intervene? Apparently he stepped between Brandon and a first grader and told Brandon that bullying behavior indicated low self-esteem and poor emotional regulation. Mrs. Patterson sounded like she was trying not to laugh. Brandon took exception to being psychoanalyzed by an 8-year-old and shoved Eli. Eli didn't shove back, but he also didn't back down. Mr. Chen separated them before it escalated. Is Eli in trouble? No. Brandon is in detention for putting hands on another student, but Principal Hayes wanted you aware of the situation. Eli's tendency to, let's call it protective intervention, has become a pattern. I'll talk to him, Maya said. She ended the call and stood in the parking lot looking at the town stretched out around her. 8 years of carefully constructed normalcy, and her son was already showing signs of the same instinct that had defined his father, the need to protect, to control threats, to stand between danger and the vulnerable. She wondered if it was genetic, if you could inherit protectiveness the way you inherited eye color. If Damien's blood ran so strong in Eli that it shaped his choices even without any conscious knowledge of where he came from. The thought terrified her. That afternoon, Maya picked Eli up from school instead of letting him take the bus. He climbed into her aging Honda without protest, backpack clutched against his chest. Mrs. Patterson called, Maya said, pulling into traffic. I figured. Eli stared out the window. Am I in trouble? That depends. Want to tell me what happened? Brandon Miller was throwing rocks at the first graders. Little kids, Mom. They were scared. Someone had to do something. Someone meaning you? Someone meaning anyone, but no one else was doing anything. So, yeah, me. Maya drove in silence for a moment, trying to figure out how to explain that heroism came with costs, that standing out invited attention, that the best way to stay safe was to stay invisible. Eli, I understand why you did it, but you can't make yourself a target. So I should just let bullies hurt people? You should tell a teacher. By the time I found a teacher, the little kids would have been hit with rocks. His voice stayed calm, logical, maddeningly reasonable. Sometimes you have to act fast. You taught me that. When did I teach you that? You didn't say it out loud, but you live it. You see someone struggling at the community center, you help them. You don't wait for someone else to notice. You just do it. Maya felt something crack in her chest. That's different. How? Because I'm an adult and you're 8. So when I'm an adult, it'll be okay to protect people? Eli, I didn't hit him, Mom. I just stood in front of the kids and told him to stop. That's all. Is that really so bad? Maya pulled into their driveway and put the car in park. She turned to look at her son, this small person with Damien's eyes and Damien's instincts, and none of Damien's understanding of how dangerous those instincts could be. It's not bad, she said quietly. It's actually really good. I'm proud of you for wanting to protect people, but I need you to understand that standing out, being the one who intervenes, it makes you visible. And sometimes being visible isn't safe. Eli studied her with an intensity that made him seem far older than 8. Are we hiding from something? The question hit like a punch. What? We've lived here my whole life. You've never mentioned family? We've never gone anywhere. You always pay cash for everything. You get weird when I ask about my father. He spoke without accusation, just observation. It seems like maybe we're hiding. Maya's hands gripped the steering wheel. We're not hiding. We're just private. Private is when you don't share things. Hiding is when you're afraid of being found. Eli's voice stayed gentle. Which one is it? For a long moment, Maya couldn't speak. Then she forced herself to smile, to touch Eli's cheek, to push everything down where it belonged. Private, she said firmly. We're just private people who value our quiet life, okay? Eli nodded, but Maya saw the skepticism in his eyes. He was too smart, too observant. 8 years old and already putting pieces together that she'd hoped would stay scattered forever. They went inside. Eli disappeared into his room to do homework. Maya started dinner and tried not to think about the fact that her son was beginning to ask questions she couldn't answer without destroying everything they'd built. That night, after Eli went to bed, Maya sat on the porch with a glass of wine and watched the ocean in the distance. The rhythmic sound of waves had become a kind of meditation over the years, constant, predictable, safe. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Maya's pulse spiked. She almost didn't answer. Unknown numbers meant uncertainty, and uncertainty meant danger. But it could also be work, or school, or a dozen other harmless things. She answered. Hello? Silence. Then, Maya. The voice hit her like a physical blow, deep, controlled, unmistakable even after 8 years of silence. Damien. Maya's wine glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the porch. How did you— We need to talk. His voice carried the same quiet authority she remembered, but there was something else underneath it now, something sharp. About our son. The world tilted. Maya gripped the porch railing, her heart hammering so hard she could barely hear over it. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. A pause. His name is Eli. He's 8 years old, born during a blackout at Mercy General Hospital. You listed no father on the birth certificate. You disappeared 3 days later and buried the records so deep they took me 8 years to find. Maya couldn't breathe. How? Hospital archive, misfiled during the storm, surfaced last week during a system consolidation. Victor's been tracking unusual activity from that night. He never stopped looking after the ambush. When the archive appeared, he found the entry. Birth time matched my timeline. Mother's description matched you. No father listed. His voice hardened. I had DNA collected from the hospital's storage. Ran comparison with samples from my medical records. 99.9% match. You had no right. I had every right. He's my son. You disappeared. The words exploded out of Maya. Victor told me you were gone, that contact would put me in danger, that I needed to vanish, so I did. I protected our— She caught herself, but too late. Our son, Damien finished. Say it, Maya. Our son. Maya closed her eyes. 8 years of secrets, gone in one phone call. Where are you? Close enough. I want to meet him. No. That's not your decision to make alone. I've made every decision alone for 8 years. Maya's voice shook. You think you can just appear now and claim parental rights? You think DNA makes you a father? I think keeping my son from me makes you a liar. His voice went cold. I understand why you ran. Victor told me what he said to you. He thought he was protecting us both. He was wrong. He was right. Your world is violent and dangerous, and I would have kept you safe, both of you, if you'd trusted me. I did trust you. Maya felt tears starting. That's why I left. Because I loved you too much to let your enemies use our child against you. Silence stretched between them, loaded with 8 years of absence and anger and grief. When Damien spoke again, his voice had softened slightly. I looked for you. For 2 years, I had people searching. Then I had to accept you didn't want to be found. I never stopped thinking about you. I never stopped thinking about you either, Maya whispered. But that doesn't change anything. You can't just walk back into our lives. I'm not walking. I'm standing still, giving you time to accept what's coming. But I will meet my son, Maya. We can do this cooperatively, or we can do it through lawyers. Your choice. If you bring lawyers, if you make this public, you'll expose us. Expose Eli. Then don't make me bring lawyers. Let me meet him. Let me be part of his life. Let me protect both of you the way I should have been doing all along. Maya wanted to scream, to throw the phone, to run the way she'd run 8 years ago, but she was tired. So tired of running, of hiding, of looking over her shoulder. I need time, she said finally. You have 3 days. After that, I'm coming to Haven's Rest whether you're ready or not. How do you know where? I've known for 4 days. I've been watching. Eli's school, your work, your house. I wanted to see what kind of life you'd built before I disrupted it. The thought of Damien watching them without her knowledge made Maya's skin crawl. You've been here? In town? Nearby, I've seen Eli, Maya. I've seen him laugh with his friends, concentrate on his homework, stand up to bullies twice his size. He's extraordinary. He's 8. He's mine. Damien's voice carried absolute conviction. And I've missed 8 years I can't get back. I won't miss any more. If you approach him, if you tell him who you are, I won't, not without you. But Maya, I will meet my son. 3 days. The line went dead. Maya sat on the porch surrounded by broken glass and tried to breathe. 8 years. 8 years of building a life separate from Damien Voss, and he'd found them in less than a week once he knew to look. She thought about running again, grabbing Eli and disappearing into a new town, a new identity, a new life. But she was so tired of running, and Damien was right about one thing. DNA made Eli his son whether Maya wanted to acknowledge it or not. She cleaned up the broken glass with shaking hands and went inside. Eli's door was closed, soft light showing underneath. She pressed her palm against it and whispered, I'm so sorry, baby. I tried to keep you safe. Then she went to her own room and spent the night staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out how to tell her 8-year-old son that the father he'd never known was coming to claim him. The next 3 days passed in a fog of dread and preparation. Maya tried to act normal, made breakfast, packed lunches, went to work, picked Eli up from school. But every moment felt weighted, like she was moving through water. She saw Damien everywhere, in every dark sedan that passed too slowly, in every stranger who looked too long, in the reflection of her son's face every time he turned toward her. On the morning of the 3rd day, Maya called in sick to work and kept Eli home from school. She made pancakes, his favorite, and tried to figure out how to start a conversation that would shatter his understanding of the world. Mom, you're acting weird, Eli said, dousing his pancakes in syrup. I'm fine. You've been weird for 3 days, and you never let me skip school. He studied her with those 2 observant eyes. What's wrong? Maya sat down across from him. Her hands were shaking. Eli, I need to tell you something about your father. Eli's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. Okay. He didn't know about you. When I left, I was pregnant, but I never told him. I thought it was safer that way, for both of us. Why wasn't it safe? Because he has a complicated life, dangerous sometimes, and I thought keeping you separate from it would protect you. Eli set down his fork carefully. Does he know now? Yes. How? He found medical records from when you were born. He figured it out. And what does he want? Such a simple question, such impossible answers. He wants to meet you, Maya said. Eli absorbed this with the same careful consideration he applied to everything. Do you want me to meet him? I don't know. Part of me is terrified. Part of me thinks you deserve to know where you come from. What's he like? Maya thought about Damien, brilliant, dangerous, capable of extraordinary gentleness and extraordinary violence, a man who built empires and protected what he loved with absolute ruthlessness. He's intense, she said finally, very smart, very focused. When he cares about something, he cares completely. He's not easy, but he's not bad. Is he coming here? Today. He gave me 3 days to prepare. This is day 3. Eli nodded slowly. Okay. Eh? I've wondered about him my whole life, Mom. You had to know I'd want to meet him eventually. You're 8. You're not supposed to be this calm about earth-shattering news. Eli almost smiled. I'm good at staying calm. You taught me that too. Before Maya could respond, there was a knock at the door. 3 firm raps, perfectly spaced. Maya's heart stopped. Is that him? Eli whispered. Stay here. Maya stood on shaking legs and moved to the door. She looked through the peephole and saw him. Damien Voss, standing on her porch like he belonged there, wearing dark slacks and a perfectly tailored shirt, looking exactly as she remembered, except for the lines around his eyes that hadn't been there 8 years ago. She opened the door. For a moment, they just stared at each other. 8 years collapsed into nothing. Maya saw recognition flash across Damien's face. He was cataloging changes the same way she was, noting the differences time had carved into both of them. Maya, he said softly. You said 3 days. It's been 3 days. I'm exactly on time. His eyes moved past her, searching the house. Is he here? Yes. But Damien, before you come in, you need to understand. Mom? Eli's voice came from behind her. It's okay. Let him in. Maya turned to find Eli standing in the hallway, pancake syrup on his chin, looking at Damien with the same intense focus he applied to everything worth studying. And Damien looked at his son for the first time. The moment stretched between them like a wire pulled taut. Maya saw Damien's expression shift through a dozen emotions too fast to name. Shock, recognition, grief, wonder, something that might have been pain. Hello, Eli, Damien said, his voice rough. I'm my father, Eli finished. Yeah, I figured that out. He tilted his head, studying Damien the way he studied everything. You look like me. Or I look like you. Same thing, I guess. Same thing, Damien agreed. He glanced at Maya, asking silent permission. Maya stepped aside. Come in. Damien entered her small house, and suddenly the space felt different, smaller, more fragile, like his presence changed the fundamental physics of the room. He moved with the same controlled grace Maya remembered, but there was something harder in him now, something that had calcified during the years they'd been apart. You want pancakes? Eli asked. Mom made extras. Damien smiled, a real smile, startled and genuine. I'd like that, thank you. They sat at the kitchen table, this fractured family held together by biology and broken by time, and Maya watched her son and his father meet across a stack of cooling pancakes while her carefully constructed world shifted beneath her feet. And in the careful way Damien looked at Eli, in the protective instinct she saw flickering to life in his eyes, Maya knew that nothing would ever be simple again. Damien cut his pancakes with the precision of a man who'd learned to control every movement, every gesture. He took a bite, chewed thoughtfully, and said, These are excellent. Mom makes them every Saturday, Eli said. Well, usually Saturday. Today's Tuesday, so something's definitely weird. Maya felt Damien's eyes on her, but she kept her attention on her coffee, gripping the mug like it could anchor her to something stable. Your mother told me you're good at noticing things, Damien said. She didn't have to tell you. You've been watching us for 4 days. Eli spoke without accusation, just stating facts. There was a black Mercedes parked across from school on Thursday. Same one near the community center on Friday. Same one that drove past our house Saturday morning. You or someone working for you. Damien's expression shifted to something Maya recognized, surprised respect. Very observant. You weren't trying that hard to hide. If you'd wanted to stay invisible, you would have used different cars, different times, different patterns. Eli took another bite of pancake. So either you're not as good at surveillance as you think, or you wanted us to know you were there. Which do you think it was? The second one. You wanted Mom to feel pressure, to know you were close, to understand you weren't going away. Eli looked at Maya. Did it work? Maya's throat felt tight. Yes. I apologize, Damien said, and he sounded genuine. I didn't mean to frighten you, either of you. I was trying to understand the situation before I complicated it. You complicated it the moment you found us, Maya said quietly. No, I complicated it 8 years ago when I built a life that put the people I loved in danger. Damien set down his fork. I've spent 8 years trying to clean up that life, to create distance from the parts that brought violence, to build something I could bring family into without fear. I wasn't there for your first 8 years, Eli. I'd like to be here for the rest. Eli studied his father with that unsettling intensity. What kind of danger? The kind that comes from power and money and making enemies in the process of acquiring both. Damien didn't sugarcoat it. I run businesses, some legitimate, some less so. People who want what I have sometimes try to take it by force. For a long time, that made anyone close to me a target. Like Mom. Like your mother. When she was pregnant with you, I was ambushed by rivals who wanted me dead. I survived, but barely. My associate Victor convinced her that staying connected to me would put both of you in danger. He wasn't entirely wrong. But he wasn't entirely right either, Eli said. Damien smiled slightly. No, he wasn't. Because the danger I represented was temporary. The men who ambushed me are dead or imprisoned. The organizations that back them have collapsed. I've spent 8 years systematically removing every threat, every rival, every person who might have reason to hurt me through the people I care about. I'm not completely clean. I never will be. But I'm as close to safe as someone in my position can get. And you want us to just trust that? Maya asked, after 8 years of silence? The silence was your choice, not mine. I looked for you. When I couldn't find you, I accepted that you'd made a decision. I respected it. His eyes held hers. But now I know about Eli, and that changes everything. It doesn't change the fact that your world is dangerous. Everywhere is dangerous, Mom, Eli interjected. Brandon Miller threw rocks at first graders yesterday. Is that safer than what he does? He nodded toward Damien. That's not the same thing. Isn't it? Danger is danger. The only difference is scale. Eli looked between them. I'm not saying I want to move in with him tomorrow. I'm just saying maybe we should know more before we make decisions. Maya stared at her 8-year-old son, wondering when he'd become the rational one in the room. Damien leaned back in his chair, watching Eli with barely concealed pride. You said he was extraordinary. You understated it. He's 8, Maya said weakly. He's brilliant and observant, and apparently more emotionally mature than both of us combined. Damien turned his attention back to Eli. What do you want to know? Eli considered this. Why now? If you've been safe for years, why didn't you look harder? Why give up? The question landed like a punch. Maya saw Damien absorb it, saw something flicker across his face that might have been pain. Because I thought your mother left because she didn't want the life I could offer. Because I thought she'd chosen something else, something better, and I didn't want to force her back into a world she'd escaped. He paused. I didn't know about you. If I'd known she was pregnant, nothing would have kept me away. Nothing. Not even Victor telling you it wasn't safe? Not even that. Eli nodded slowly, processing. Okay. Okay, what? Maya asked. Okay. I believe him. Eli pushed his plate away. I've read about body language and microexpressions. He's telling the truth. Or at least, he believes he's telling the truth, which is basically the same thing. Damien laughed, a real laugh, surprised and delighted. You've read about microexpressions. Library has good books, plus internet. Eli shrugged. I like understanding how people work. So do I. Damien glanced at Maya. He gets that from both of us. The words hung in the air, acknowledging for the first time that Eli was built from both of them, that genetics had woven them together in ways that 8 years of separation couldn't erase. Maya stood abruptly. I need air. She walked out onto the porch, leaving father and son at the kitchen table. The morning was clear, the ocean visible in the distance, everything exactly as it should be, except for the fact that her entire life had just shifted off its axis. She heard footsteps behind her. Damien, of course, moving quietly, giving her space, but not leaving her alone. He's remarkable, Damien said. I know. You did this, raised him alone, kept him safe, gave him a good life. I can see it in everything he does. Don't, Maya's voice cracked. Don't try to make this easy by complimenting my parenting. You don't get to show up after 8 years and act like this is simple. I'm not trying to make it simple. I'm trying to acknowledge what you've accomplished. I accomplished it without you. I know. And I'm sorry for that. Sorrier than I can express. Damien moved to stand beside her, not touching, just present. But I'm here now, and I'm not leaving. We need to figure out how this works. There is no this. You're his father biologically, but you're a stranger to him. You don't just walk into an 8-year-old's life and become dad. I'm not trying to become dad overnight. I'm trying to become present, available, part of his life in whatever capacity he'll accept. Damien paused. And part of yours, if you'll let me. Maya turned to look at him, really look at him. The years had changed him, added weight to his presence, lines to his face, a kind of controlled intensity that suggested violence held carefully in check. But his eyes were the same, dark, focused, capable of surprising gentleness. "I can't do this again," she whispered. "I can't let you in and then watch you disappear." "I'm not disappearing. I told you. I've spent 8 years building toward this. Toward a life stable enough to include family. I'm here, Maya. I'm staying. Until the next threat. Until the next ambush. Until something pulls you back into the darkness. There is no darkness anymore. Just gray areas, complicated business. The kind of life most powerful men live, just with a little more edge." He reached out, stopped just short of touching her hand. "I'm not asking you to trust me blindly. I'm asking you to let me prove I've changed." Before Maya could respond, Eli appeared in the doorway. "Are you two done talking about me like I'm not here?" Damien smiled. "We're talking about us. You just happen to be the connecting point." "Same thing." Eli looked at Damien. "I have questions." "I expected you would. Not about your business or the danger stuff. About you. Like, what do you do for fun? What's your favorite book? Do you play any sports? Can you cook? Normal stuff." Damien blinked, clearly not expecting that line of inquiry. "I read, mostly. History, philosophy, occasionally fiction. I don't play sports, but I work out regularly. And I can cook, though I usually have it done for me." "What kind of fiction?" "Thrillers, primarily, some literary fiction." "I like mysteries," Eli said. "Sherlock Holmes, Encyclopedia Brown, that kind of thing. Mom says I like puzzles because my brain works that way." "Mine too." Damien's expression softened. "I'd like to recommend some books if you're interested. Stories I think you'd enjoy." "Okay, but I get to recommend some back. Fair trade." "Absolutely fair." Maya watched them negotiate this small exchange and felt something loosen in her chest. Not relief, exactly. More like resignation. Damien wasn't going away. Eli wanted to know him, and she was too tired to keep fighting a battle she'd already lost. "I need rules," she said. Both of them turned to look at her. "If we're doing this, we do it my way. You don't take Eli anywhere without my permission. You don't make decisions about his life without consulting me. You don't introduce him to your business or your associates. He stays separate from that world, completely separate." "Agreed," Damien said without hesitation. "And if at any point I feel like this is becoming dangerous, if I see any sign that your presence is putting him at risk, you walk away. No arguments, no lawyers, no custody battles. You just go." Damien's jaw tightened. "That's asking me to give up my son if you get scared. That's asking you to prioritize his safety over your parental rights. If you can't agree to that, we're done here." They stared at each other, wills locked. Eli watched the standoff with interest. Finally, Damien nodded. "Agreed, with one condition." "What condition?" "You promise to be honest about what constitutes actual danger versus fear of danger. I won't let anxiety dictate my relationship with my son, but if there's genuine threat, I'll step back. Deal?" Maya considered this. It was more than she'd expected him to concede. "Deal." "Good." Eli clapped his hands together. "Now that the negotiation's done, can I ask what happens next? Like, do you just visit sometimes? Do we get dinner together? What's the actual plan?" Damien looked at Maya. "What do you want the plan to be?" "I want slow, careful, building trust before we build anything else." "I can do slow." Damien pulled out his phone. "I'm staying at a rental house about 20 miles north. Small place, private. I'll be there for the foreseeable future. When you're ready for the next conversation, call me." He showed Maya the number on the screen. She committed it to memory, but didn't take the phone. "What if I'm never ready?" she asked. "Then I wait, but I think you will be, because you know I'm right about one thing." Damien's eyes held hers. "Eli deserves to know where he comes from, and despite everything, you want him to have what you didn't, a complete picture of his family." He was right. She hated that he was right, but he was. Damien turned to Eli. "It was good to meet you, really good. I hope we can do this again soon." "Me too," Eli said simply. Damien walked to the door, then paused. "Thank you for letting me in. I know it wasn't easy." Nothing about this is easy, Maya said. No, but some things worth having rarely are. He left, and Maya watched through the window as he climbed into a black Mercedes, the same one Eli had spotted, and drove away. The house felt emptier without him, which was ridiculous considering he'd only been there an hour. He seems okay, Eli said from behind her. He's dangerous. Lots of people are dangerous. Doesn't mean they're bad. Maya turned to face her son. When did you become so philosophical? I've always been philosophical. You just usually don't notice because you're busy protecting me. Eli moved closer. I know you're scared. I get it. But Mom, I want to know him. I want to understand where half of me comes from. Can you let me have that? Maya pulled Eli into a hug, feeling his small body against hers, still young enough to fit in her arms but growing every day. I'll try. That's all I'm asking. They stood like that for a long moment, mother and son, holding on to each other while the world shifted around them. The next week passed in surreal normalcy. Maya went to work, Eli went to school, routines continued as they always had. But underneath the surface, everything had changed. Maya found herself looking for the Mercedes, wondering if Damien was watching. She caught herself almost calling him a dozen times, fingers hovering over the phone before she talked herself out of it. Eli asked casual questions about his father. What did he look like when he was young? Did he play sports in school? What kind of music did he like? Maya answered what she could, which wasn't much. She'd known Damien intensely for 6 months, but there were vast territories of his life she'd never explored. On Saturday morning, Maya's phone rang. Unknown number, but she knew who it was before she answered. Hello, Damien. Maya. I was hoping we could talk. Not about Eli, necessarily, just talk. Why? Because we spent 6 months building something before it fell apart. Because we share a son. Because I miss your voice. He paused. And because I think you might miss mine too, even if you don't want to admit it. Maya walked out to the porch, away from where Eli was reading in the living room. This is complicated. Everything worth having is complicated. You said that when you left. It was true then. It's true now. She heard him shift, heard what might have been wind through a phone speaker. I'm trying to give you space, trying to respect your boundaries. But Maya, I've spent 8 years wondering what happened to you, and now I know you've been here 30 minutes away raising our son alone. I want to understand why. I want to understand you. You know why. Victor told you. Victor told me his version. I want yours. Maya leaned against the porch railing, staring at the ocean. I was terrified. You disappeared, Victor said you might be dead, or might as well be, and I was pregnant with a baby whose father operated in a world I didn't understand. I couldn't bring a child into that. I couldn't make Eli a target before he was even born. So you erased us both. I protected him the only way I knew how. By making sure I could never find you. By building a life that excluded me completely. Damien's voice carried an edge now. Did you ever plan to tell him about me? Or was the goal to let him grow up thinking his father didn't exist? I planned to tell him when he was old enough to understand, when he could make his own choice about whether to search for you. And when would that be? 18, 21, after he'd spent his entire childhood wondering why he wasn't enough to make his father stay. The words hit hard because Maya had worried about exactly that, had seen Eli watching other kids with their dads, and known he was building narratives about his own absence. That's not fair, she said. None of this is fair. You made a unilateral decision that affected all 3 of us. I understand why. I even respect it to a degree. But don't act like your choice didn't have consequences. Your life had consequences. Your choices put us in danger. My choices 8 years ago, yes, but I've spent those 8 years changing, building something different. If you'd trusted me, if you'd reached out even once, we could have built this together. I couldn't risk it. You couldn't risk me. His voice softened. That's what this really comes down to. You loved me, but you didn't trust that love was enough to protect Eli. You chose certainty over faith, safety over us. Maya felt tears starting. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. I understand being alone and terrified and making the choice you thought was right, even if it destroyed everything else. I've made those choices too. The difference is, I'm trying to build something new from the wreckage. You're still hiding in it. I'm not hiding. I'm protecting my son. Our son. And he doesn't need protection from me. He needs presence. He needs family. He needs to understand that love doesn't always look clean and simple, but it's still love. Maya wiped her eyes. Why are you doing this? Because I spent 8 years accepting your absence. I'm not spending one more day pretending it doesn't matter that you're here, that we're here, that we have a son who deserves better than two parents who can't figure out how to be in the same room without destroying each other. We're not destroying each other. Not yet. But we will if we keep living in the past instead of building toward something different. Damien exhaled. I want to try, Maya. I want to see if what we had is still there underneath all the fear and anger. And I want Eli to see his parents try to make something work instead of giving up before we've started. That's asking for a lot. I know, but we've already given up 8 years. How much more are we willing to sacrifice? Maya closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the question settle over her. She thought about Eli, about the way he'd looked at Damien with such open curiosity, about the fact that he deserved to see what family could look like when people fought for it instead of running from it. Coffee, she said finally. Tomorrow morning, just us. We talk about how this works. Just us, Damien agreed. Thank you. He hung up and Maya stood on the porch holding her phone, wondering what she'd just agreed to and why some part of her felt lighter for having done it. The next morning, Maya met Damien at a coffee shop in the next town over. Neutral territory where no one from Haven's Rest would recognize her. He was already there when she arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee in front of him. Black, 2 sugars, he said as she sat down. Unless your preferences have changed. They haven't. Maya took the cup, grateful for something to hold. How did you remember? I remember everything about you. They sat in silence for a moment, drinking coffee and navigating the strange territory of being near each other again. Tell me about the last 8 years, Maya said finally. The real version, not the sanitized one you gave Eli. Damien leaned back in his chair. After the ambush, I disappeared. Victor got me out of the city and into a facility where I spent 3 months recovering. Broken ribs, punctured lung, shattered collarbone. I was lucky to be alive. Victor told me you might be dead. For a while it was touch and go. When I finally stabilized, I realized I needed to change everything. The people who'd come for me were well-funded, well-connected, and motivated by the kind of hatred that doesn't fade. So I started systematically dismantling their operations. It took 2 years, but I destroyed every organization that had supported the attack. Destroyed how? Financial strangulation, legal pressure, strategic information leaks to law enforcement, and when necessary, direct confrontation. His eyes met hers. I won't pretend it was bloodless, but it was surgical, precise. And when it was done, the people who'd wanted me dead were either in prison or scattered to the point of irrelevance. And then I rebuilt, sold off the questionable businesses, invested in legitimate ventures, created distance between myself and the criminal elements that had defined my early career. I still operate in gray areas, that's unavoidable in my world, but I'm not the man I was 8 years ago. I'm not the man Victor thought was too dangerous for you. Maya studied him. Why now? Why spend 8 years changing if you thought I was gone? Because I wanted to be someone who deserved you, even if I never saw you again. Because I wanted to prove to myself that I was more than the violence that had defined me. And because somewhere in the back of my mind, I hoped you'd come back. That you'd hear I'd changed and give me another chance. I didn't come back. No. But I found you anyway. And I found something I never expected. A son who represents the best parts of both of us. A reason to keep being better. Maya felt something crack in her chest. I wanted to tell you. So many times, I almost called that emergency number Victor gave me. But I was terrified that contact would bring everything crashing down. It might have. 8 years ago, Victor was right to worry, but he should have told me. He should have given me the choice. Would you have stayed away if he had? Damien didn't hesitate. No, I would have found a way to protect you both while staying present. It wouldn't have been easy, but I would have done it. That's what I was afraid of. That you'd try to protect us and get yourself killed in the process. That Eli would grow up knowing his father died trying to keep him safe. I couldn't live with that. So you chose absence over risk. Yes. Damien reached across the table and took her hand. The touch sent electricity through her, familiar and foreign, all at once. I understand why you made that choice. I even respect it. But Maya, we can't live in the past anymore. We have to decide what comes next. What do you want to come next? I want to know my son. I want to be part of his life in real, meaningful ways. I want him to understand where he comes from and who I am, flaws and all. He paused. And I want to see if there's still something between us worth rebuilding. Maya's breath caught. Damien, I'm not asking for promises. I'm not asking you to fall back into my arms like 8 years didn't happen. I'm asking if you're willing to see if what we had can survive everything that's tried to kill it. What if it can't? Then we figure out how to co-parent with respect and distance. But what if it can? What if underneath all the fear and anger, we're still the same people who couldn't stay away from each other? His thumb traced circles on her palm. Don't you want to know? Maya did want to know. That was the terrifying part. 8 years of building walls, and Damien had walked through them in less than a week. We go slow, she said. We prioritize Eli, and if this becomes destructive, we stop. Agreed. And you have to be honest with me. About your business, about threats, about everything. No more secrets. No more secrets, Damien promised. They finished their coffee while negotiating the details. When Damien could see Eli, what activities they'd do together, how they'd navigate questions from school and neighbors. It was practical, methodical, and entirely insufficient for addressing the emotional complexity underneath. But it was a start. As Maya drove home, she called Shayna from the community center. I need advice. About what? About whether I'm making a huge mistake. Does this have to do with the mysterious man who's been watching you all week? Maya's heart stopped. You noticed? Honey, everyone noticed. Black Mercedes, professionally dressed, watches you like you're the only person in the world. Either you're being stalked or you've got a situation. Which is it? It's Eli's father. Silence. Then, the one who didn't know Eli existed? He knows now. And he's here because he wants to be part of Eli's life, and maybe part of mine. And you're calling me because you need someone to tell you this is insane, or because you need someone to tell you it's okay. Maya pulled into her driveway and sat in the car. I don't know. Do you still love him? I never stopped. Does Eli like him? Yes. Weirdly, immediately, yes. Then what's the problem? The problem is his life is dangerous and complicated, and yours has been safe and simple and lonely for 8 years, Shayna interrupted. Look, I don't know this guy, but I know you. And I know you've been holding your breath since you moved here, waiting for something to go wrong. Maybe instead of waiting for disaster, you try living. Maya closed her eyes. What if living brings disaster? What if it doesn't? What if it brings family and love and all the messy, complicated, beautiful things you've been denying yourself? Shayna's voice softened. You can't protect Eli from everything, Maya. At some point, you have to trust that the foundation you've given him is strong enough to handle complexity. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You've just been too scared to listen. Maya ended the call and went inside to find Eli at the kitchen table with a notebook, writing something with intense concentration. What are you working on? She asked. Questions for Damien, about his business, his life, his choices. Eli looked up. I figure if he's going to be around, I should understand who he actually is, not just who I want him to be. Maya sat down beside him. That's very mature. I'm good at research. Eli tapped his pencil against the page. Did you two talk? We did. And we're going to try to make this work, to build something that includes all three of us. Eli smiled, a real smile, wide and genuine. Good. I like him. And I think you do too, even if you're pretending not to. I'm not pretending anything. You're pretending you're not scared, but that's okay. Being scared means you care. Eli returned to his notebook. When can I see him again? Soon. We're figuring out the schedule. Tell him I want to go to the park, the one with the good climbing structure. I want to see if he's athletic or just talks about working out. Maya laughed despite herself. I'll pass that along. She texted Damien the request, and his response came immediately. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., I'll be there. And just like that, they were building something new, something fragile and uncertain and terrifying in all the ways that mattered. But for the first time in 8 years, Maya felt like she was moving forward instead of just surviving. She hoped it was enough. She hoped they were enough. The park was nearly empty when they arrived. Just a few mothers with toddlers at the sandbox and an elderly man walking a small dog along the path. Damien was already there, leaning against a bench near the climbing structure, wearing jeans and a dark shirt that made him look almost normal. Almost. Eli spotted him immediately and took off running. Maya's heart lurched, but she forced herself to walk at a normal pace to let this moment belong to them. "You came," Eli said, slightly breathless. "I said I would." Damien straightened. "Ready to test my athletic abilities? Race you to the top." Eli pointed at the climbing structure, a complex network of ropes, platforms, and metal bars that stretched 15 feet high. "You're on." They moved to the structure, and Maya watched as her son and his father scrambled up different sides, competing with the kind of ease that suggested they'd done this 1,000 times before, instead of never. Damien was faster, stronger, but he held back just enough to let Eli reach the top platform first. "I won," Eli called down. "You did," Damien agreed, pulling himself onto the platform beside Eli. "Fair and square. You let me win. I gave you a sporting chance. There's a difference." They sat on the platform together, legs dangling, and Maya felt something shift in her chest. This was what she'd denied Eli for 8 years. This easy camaraderie, the sense of being seen by someone who understood him instinctively. After a few minutes, they climbed down and joined Maya on the bench. "He's fast," Damien said, "and he doesn't hesitate. That's good instinct." "It's terrifying instinct," Maya countered. "He climbs things without thinking about how to get down." "I think about it," Eli protested. "I just think about it while I'm already climbing." Damien laughed, and the sound was so genuine, so unguarded, that Maya found herself smiling despite her anxiety. They spent the next hour at the park, and Maya watched father and son navigate each other with surprising grace. Damien asked questions about school, about friends, about what Eli liked to read, and listened to the answers with complete attention. Eli tested boundaries, asked pointed questions about Damien's work and his past, and accepted the careful answers without pushing too hard. It should have felt awkward. Instead, it felt inevitable. As they were preparing to leave, Eli's expression shifted. He went still, focused on something beyond Maya's shoulder. "What's wrong?" Maya asked. "That car." Eli pointed to a dark sedan parked across the street. "It's been there since we got here. Driver hasn't gotten out. Just sitting there, watching." Maya's blood went cold. She turned to look, but Damien's hand on her arm stopped her. "Don't," he said quietly. "Don't let them know you've noticed." "Them?" Maya's voice came out strangled. "You know who that is?" "Possibly. Stay calm." Damien stood smoothly, keeping his body between them and the car. "Eli, take your mother's hand. We're going to walk to my car, and you're going to tell me about your science project like nothing's wrong." "I don't have a science project," Eli said. "Then make one up. Now." They walked across the park, Eli improvising an elaborate story about volcanoes, while Maya's heart hammered so hard she could barely hear him. Damien kept pace beside them, relaxed and casual, but Maya could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes tracked everything around them. They reached Damien's Mercedes. He unlocked it and gestured for them to get in. "I have my car," Maya said. "Leave it. I'll have it picked up later." His voice carried an edge that made arguing impossible. "Get in." Maya and Eli climbed into the back seat. Damien slid behind the wheel, started the engine, and pulled out of the parking lot with controlled speed. The sedan followed. "We're being followed," Eli observed calmly. "Yes?" Damien said. "By people who want to hurt us?" "By people who want information. Whether they want to hurt you depends on what they learn." Damien's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. "Don't worry, I've dealt with this before." He drove through Haven's Rest with the kind of precision that suggested he'd already mapped every street, every turn, every potential escape route. The sedan stayed 3 car lengths back, professional and patient. What do they want? Maya asked, her voice shaking. They want to know if you matter to me, if Eli matters to me, if you're leverage they can use. Damien turned onto a residential street, then another, creating distance. I need you both to listen very carefully. When I tell you to, you're going to get out of this car and walk into the house on the left, the blue one with the white trim. The door will be unlocked. Inside, there's a man named Victor. He'll keep you safe while I handle this. Victor, Maya repeated. The one who told me to disappear? The same. He's been watching over you since I found you, making sure you stayed safe while I figured out how to approach without scaring you. Damien pulled up in front of the blue house. Go, now! Maya grabbed Eli's hand and they ran. The door opened before they reached it, and Victor, older than she remembered, broader, with the kind of face that suggested violence was a professional skill, pulled them inside and locked the door behind them. Through the window, Maya watched Damien drive away. The sedan hesitated, then followed. He'll be fine, Victor said. His voice was deep, accented, carrying the weight of absolute certainty. This is what he does. What who does? Eli asked. What's happening? Victor looked down at the boy, and something shifted in his expression. You're Eli. Yeah. Who are you? I'm the man who convinced your mother to leave your father 8 years ago. I'm also the man who spent the last week making sure no one bothered you while Damien figured out how to be part of your life. Victor moved to his window, watching the street. And right now, I'm the man keeping you safe while your father deals with people who should have known better than to follow him. Maya sank onto the couch, pulling Eli close. What people? Who are they? Remnants. Old enemies who thought Damien was vulnerable because he'd gone legitimate. They've been watching him for months, waiting for weakness. Victor's jaw tightened. Finding you gave them what they thought was an opening. So this is my fault, Maya whispered. This is their fault for being stupid enough to threaten Damien Voss's family. Victor turned from the window. He spent 8 years eliminating threats. These idiots just moved themselves to the top of his priority list. Eli pulled away from Maya. Is he going to kill them? Victor didn't sugarcoat it. Probably not. Damien doesn't kill unless necessary anymore, but he'll make them wish he had. He'll take everything they have, money, connections, freedom, and he'll do it so thoroughly they'll never be a threat again. How long will that take? Maya asked. Could be hours, could be days. Depends on how smart they are. Victor moved to the kitchen and returned with water bottles. In the meantime, you stay here. This house is secure. Armed guards outside, surveillance on every approach, panic room in the basement if things go sideways. You're safe. Maya took the water with shaking hands. I should never have let him near us. I should have run the moment he showed up. Running is what put you here in the first place, Victor said bluntly. If you'd stayed 8 years ago, if you'd trusted Damien to protect you, he would have eliminated these threats before they became problems. Instead, you disappeared. And the people who hate him spent 8 years thinking he had no family, no vulnerabilities, nothing they could use against him. Now they know different. So this is my fault. This is the consequence of loving someone powerful. It comes with risk, but it also comes with protection. Victor's expression softened slightly. Damien has resources most people can't imagine. He has people, connections, the kind of reach that makes problems disappear. The men following you today made a mistake. They revealed themselves before they understood what they were dealing with. Damien will use that. Eli had been quiet through this exchange, processing. Now he spoke up. If Damien's so powerful, why didn't he find us sooner? Because your mother is smarter than most people give her credit for, Victor said. She buried your existence so deep that even Damien's resources couldn't uncover it. The only reason he found you now is because of a filing error during a storm 8 years ago. One random misfiled document. That's how good her hiding was. Eli looked at Maya with new respect. You're kind of a badass, Mom. Despite everything, Maya almost laughed. Language. It's accurate, though. Victor's phone buzzed. He checked it, and his expression shifted to something that might have been satisfaction. Damien's handled the immediate tale. He's heading to a secondary location to have a conversation with their employer. Could be a few hours. What kind of conversation? Maya asked. The kind where he explains why touching his family is a death sentence. Victor pocketed his phone. You should rest. It's going to be a long night. But Maya couldn't rest. She paced the safe house while Eli explored with the kind of curiosity that suggested he found the whole situation more interesting than terrifying. Victor made dinner, simple pasta, salad, bread, and they ate in tense silence. It was nearly midnight when Damien finally returned. He looked tired but unharmed, his clothes slightly disheveled, his expression carrying the weight of violence recently committed. It's done, he said. Victor nodded and left the room, giving them privacy. Damien moved to the couch where Maya sat rigid with fear. The people following you worked for a man named Marcus Chen. Old rival, thought I'd gone soft, decided to test it by going after my family. He was wrong. What did you do to him? Maya asked. I froze his assets, exposed his criminal operations to law enforcement, and made it clear that any future attempts to contact or observe my family would result in consequences he wouldn't survive. Damien's voice stayed level, professional. He'll spend the next decade fighting legal battles and dodging federal prosecutors. He won't have time to think about us. You destroyed his life. I neutralized a threat to my son. There's a difference. Eli appeared in the doorway, still awake despite the hour. Did you hurt anyone? Damien looked at his son and seemed to decide on honesty. I hurt the man who sent people to watch you. Not permanently, not fatally, but enough that he understands the cost of threatening what's mine. Good, Eli said simply. Eli. Maya's voice came out sharper than intended. What? He protected us. That's what fathers do. Eli moved to sit beside Damien. Right? It's what I do, Damien said carefully. But your mother's right to be concerned. Violence, even protective violence, has consequences. It changes you. It should never be a first choice. Was it your first choice tonight? No. My first choice was to talk, to negotiate, to find a peaceful resolution. But Chen chose violence when he sent people to follow you, so I responded in kind. Damien glanced at Maya. I won't apologize for protecting our son, but I understand if this changes things between us. Maya stood and walked to the window. Outside, she could see armed guards positioned around the property, could see the security measures that had been invisible when they'd arrived. This was Damien's world. Protection and violence, safety and threat, all tangled together in ways that couldn't be separated. I knew what you were when I fell in love with you, she said quietly. I knew the power you had and the way you used it. I just didn't understand the full cost until I was pregnant and terrified. She turned to face him. But you're right about one thing. Running didn't make us safer. It just made us alone. So what now? Damien asked. Now we figure out how to live with this. How to give Eli a normal life while accepting that his father is anything but normal. How to build something real in the middle of all this chaos. I want normal, Eli interjected. But I also want family. And if family comes with guards and safe houses and occasionally having to hide from bad guys, that seems like a fair trade. Maya looked at her 8-year-old son, who was discussing security protocols like other kids discussed video games, and wondered when he'd become so pragmatic about danger. It's not a fair trade, she said. You deserve better. I deserve parents who love me and each other. Everything else is just details. Eli yawned. Can we go home now? I have school tomorrow. Damien smiled despite the gravity of the moment. Not yet. I need to make sure it's safe first. Another day or two here, then we'll reassess. We can't stay here for days, Maya protested. I have work. Eli has school. I've already called your work and the school, told them there's a family emergency, that you'll return when things stabilize. Damien stood. I know this isn't ideal, but until I'm certain Chen's organization is completely neutralized, you're safer here. How long will that take? 72 hours, maybe less. I have people dismantling his operation as we speak. By Wednesday, he'll be in federal custody and his network will be scattered. Damien moved closer to Maya. I know you hate this. I know you want your normal life back, but normal is a luxury we can't afford until the immediate threat is eliminated. Maya felt tears of frustration starting. I spent 8 years building a safe life for him. 1 week with you and it's all falling apart. It's not falling apart. It's transforming. And yes, that's uncomfortable and scary and nothing like what you planned. But Maya, you can't control everything. Sometimes you have to trust that the people who love you will keep you safe even when the world gets dangerous. I don't know how to do that. Then let me teach you. Damien reached out, and this time Maya didn't pull away. His hand closed around hers, warm and solid and real. Let me show you what a protection looks like when you're not facing it alone. Eli, watching this exchange with interest, cleared his throat. Are you two getting back together? Because if so, I have opinions about how that should work. Both adults turned to stare at him. What opinions? Damien asked. Like, you should date properly before making any big decisions. And you should definitely talk about your feelings instead of just staring at each other intensely. And maybe, I don't know, actually kiss or something so we can all stop pretending there's not still chemistry here. Maya felt her face heat. Eli, I'm 8, not blind. You two look at each other like people in movies look at each other before the dramatic reunion scene. Just saying. Eli headed for the hallway. I'm going to bed. Try not to do anything too dramatic while I'm sleeping. He disappeared, leaving Maya and Damien alone in the sudden silence. He's observant, Damien said. He gets it from both of us. Maya pulled her hand free, needing distance to think. This is moving too fast. What is? The threat or us? Both. All of it. 3 weeks ago, my life was simple. Now I'm in a safe house while you destroy your enemies and our son gives relationship advice. It's too much. I know, but Maya, we don't get to control the timing. We can only control how we respond. Damien moved closer, not touching, just present. I meant what I said at the coffee shop. I want to see if what we had can survive what we've been through. But that requires both of us to try. To be honest. To stop running from the difficult conversations. I don't know how to not run. Running is what's kept us safe. Running is what's kept you isolated. There's a difference. His voice gentled. What are you really afraid of? That I'll hurt you? That my world will destroy Eli? Or that if you let yourself love me again, you won't be able to walk away if things get hard? Maya felt the question land like a physical blow because he was right. All of it was true, but the last part especially. She'd spent 8 years building walls, and the thought of tearing them down only to have everything collapse again was terrifying. I'm afraid of all of it, she whispered. I'm afraid you'll break my heart. I'm afraid your enemies will hurt Eli. I'm afraid I'll fall so completely that I lose myself in you again. I'm afraid that 8 years of growth and independence will disappear the moment I let you back in. What if none of that happens? What if we build something better than what we had before? What if we learn from the past instead of being destroyed by it? Damien reached out slowly, giving her time to retreat. When she didn't, he cupped her face gently. What if we're stronger now than we were then? Maya closed her eyes, feeling the familiar touch, the warmth of his hands, the way her body remembered him even after all this time. What if we're not? Then we try anyway, because the alternative is spending the rest of our lives wondering what might have been. His thumb brushed her cheek. I've spent 8 years wondering. I don't want to spend 8 more. Maya opened her eyes and found him watching her with an intensity that made her breath catch. Eli was right. We have chemistry. We have more than chemistry. We have history and a son and a chance to build something real. Damien leaned closer. The question is whether you're brave enough to take it. You're calling me a coward? I'm calling you scared. There's a difference. Cowards run from everything. You ran from one thing, the possibility that loving me might destroy you. But Maya, you're still standing. You raised an extraordinary son alone. You built a life from nothing. You survived everything that tried to break you. That's not cowardice. That's strength. Then why does it feel like weakness? Because strength and vulnerability look the same sometimes. Because admitting you need someone feels like giving up control. Because loving someone who operates in darkness requires faith that the light you bring will be enough. He pulled back slightly. But I've seen you, Maya. I've seen how bright you shine. And I'm asking you to shine for both of us while I figure out how to deserve it. Maya felt tears starting for real now. That's a lot of pressure. You've been carrying pressure alone for 8 years. Maybe it's time to share the weight. Before Maya could respond, Damien kissed her. Soft at first, tentative, giving her space to retreat. But when she leaned into him instead, when her hands came up to grip his shirt, the kiss deepened into something that felt like coming home and jumping off a cliff simultaneously. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Damien rested his forehead against hers. "I've missed you. Every day for 8 years, I've missed you." "I missed you too," Maya admitted. "Even when I was trying not to. Even when I told myself it was safer to forget. I missed you." They stood like that, wrapped in each other, until Victor cleared his throat from the doorway. "Sorry to interrupt," he said, sounding not at all sorry, "but we've got confirmation. Chen's been picked up by federal agents. His organization is scattered. The immediate threat is neutralized." Damien didn't let go of Maya. Time frame for complete resolution? 48 hours until his legal team buries him in paperwork. After that, he won't have resources to breathe, much less threaten your family. Victor smiled slightly. "You can go home tomorrow if you want. Place is secure now." "Thank you, Victor." "Don't thank me. Just name a kid after me someday." Victor disappeared back down the hall. Maya laughed despite herself. "He wants us to have another kid?" "Victor's sentimental under all the violence. Don't tell anyone, it'll ruin his reputation." Damien pulled back enough to look at her properly. "Do you want to go home tomorrow? Or do you want to stay here, take some time to adjust to everything that's changed?" "I want normal. Whatever that means now." "Then normal it is. We go home, resume routines, and figure out how to build a life that includes all three of us. Slowly, carefully, honestly. And when the next threat appears, we handle it together instead of you handling it alone." Damien's expression turned serious. "I can't promise there won't be threats. My past is complicated, and some of it will follow me forever. But I can promise that you'll never face it unprotected again, that Eli will never be vulnerable, that I will burn down anyone who tries to hurt what's mine." That should sound terrifying. Does it? Maya considered this. No, it sounds like safety, which is maybe the most terrifying part. Because you've never had it before. Not really. Not the kind that comes with absolute protection. Damien kissed her forehead. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we start building something new." Maya went to the guest room where Eli was already asleep, sprawled across the bed with a book open beside him. She changed into borrowed clothes, climbed in beside her son, and tried to process everything that had happened. 3 weeks ago, she'd been living a quiet life in Haven's Rest. Now she was in a safe house. Her son's father had just destroyed a criminal organization to protect them, and she'd kissed the man she'd spent 8 years trying to forget. She should have been terrified. Instead, she felt something that might have been hope beginning to take root. Maybe Damien was right. Maybe they were stronger now than they'd been before. Maybe 8 years of separation had taught them both enough that they could build something sustainable instead of something that burned too bright and collapsed under its own intensity. Or maybe they'd crash and burn spectacularly, and she'd spend the next 8 years picking up the pieces. Either way, she was done running. Maya fell asleep with her son tucked against her side, and the sound of guards patrolling outside. And for the first time in 8 years, she felt truly safe. Morning came with the smell of coffee and the low murmur of voices from the kitchen. Maya woke to find Eli already gone from the bed, and for a moment panic seized her before she remembered where they were, what had happened, why armed guards stood outside. She found Eli and Damien at the kitchen table, heads bent over a notebook filled with Eli's careful handwriting. Damien was explaining something about business structures, using simple language but not talking down, and Eli was absorbing every word with the focus he usually reserved for mystery novels. "Morning," Maya said from the doorway. Both looked up, and the similarity between them hit her fresh. Same dark eyes, same intensity, same way of tilting their heads when considering something important. "Mom, Damien's explaining how legitimate businesses work versus illegal ones. Did you know most criminal organizations fail because they can't properly launder their income?" Eli's enthusiasm was palpable. "It's actually really interesting from an economics perspective." "I'm sure it is." Maya moved to the coffee pot, needing caffeine before she could process her 8-year-old discussing money laundering. "Should we be teaching him this?" "He asked," Damien said simply. "I'm not going to lie to him about how the world works. The world most 8-year-olds inhabit doesn't include discussions of criminal economics." "Most 8-year-olds don't have my father," Eli pointed out. "Besides, Understanding how bad things work helps you avoid them, right? He looked to Damien for confirmation. Right. Knowledge is protection. Ignorance is vulnerability. Damien closed the notebook. But your mother has a point. Maybe we save the advanced lessons for when you're older. How much older? Let's start with 10 and reassess. Eli sighed dramatically but didn't argue. Victor appeared with breakfast, scrambled eggs, toast, fresh fruit, and they ate while discussing the plan for returning home. Chen's in federal custody, Victor reported. His lawyer's already trying to negotiate, but the evidence is overwhelming. He'll be lucky to see daylight before his 60s. What about his organization? Damien asked. Scattered, some fled the country, some are trying to bargain their way into witness protection, some are pretending they never knew him. None of them have resources or motivation to continue his vendetta. Victor poured more coffee. You're clear. Family's safe. The words should have brought relief, but Maya felt tension she hadn't known she was carrying finally release. So we can actually go home. You can go home, Victor confirmed, though I'd recommend maintaining some security measures. Nothing intrusive, just awareness. What kind of measures? Maya asked. Damien answered. Updated locks, security system, regular check-ins, and I'd like to have someone nearby, not watching you constantly, just available if needed. You want to assign us a bodyguard. I want to ensure my family has protection if something unexpected happens. There's a difference. Maya wanted to argue, but the events of the past 48 hours had proven that Damien's world occasionally bled into theirs, whether she liked it or not. Fine, but nothing obvious, no men in black following us to the grocery store. Agreed. Subtle protection only. They finished breakfast and gathered their things. The drive back to Haven's Rest felt surreal. Returning to the small house, the quiet street, the normal life that suddenly felt like a costume Maya had worn for 8 years but never quite fit properly. Damien pulled into the driveway behind Maya's Honda, which had been returned overnight along with a new security system Maya could see installed on the windows. When did that happen? She asked. While we were at the safe house. Victor's people work fast. Damien killed the engine. I know it's intrusive, but it's necessary. Maya looked at her house, her sanctuary for 8 years, now equipped with cameras and sensors and the infrastructure of Damien's world. Part of her wanted to rage against it. The rest of her understood that safety sometimes required sacrifice. Okay, she said quietly. They went inside. Eli immediately disappeared to his room to check that everything was as he'd left it. Maya stood in the kitchen, looking at the familiar space that felt different now, changed by everything that had happened. Damien moved beside her. We don't have to do this if you're not ready. I can maintain distance. Just be present for Eli. Keep things simple. Nothing about this is simple. No. But we can make it simpler. Clear boundaries, defined roles, co-parenting without the complication of whatever's happening between us. Maya turned to face him. Is that what you want? What I want is you, both of you. A real family, messy and complicated, and nothing like the controlled life I've built over the past 8 years. His expression softened. But I'll take whatever you're willing to give. If that's just co-parenting, I'll accept it. If it's more, I'll be grateful for it. Before Maya could respond, her phone rang. Shayna from work. I heard there was a family emergency, Shayna said without preamble. You okay? I'm fine, we're fine. Just some unexpected complications. Complications involving the mysterious man in the Mercedes? Maya glanced at Damien, who was pretending not to listen while clearly listening to every word. It's complicated. Everything with you is complicated lately. Listen, when you're ready to talk about it, I'm here. And when you're ready to come back to work, we miss you. I'll be back Monday, promise. Good. The seniors are driving me crazy asking where you are. Apparently I don't make coffee the right way. Shayna paused. Seriously though, you okay? You sound different. I am different. I think in a good way, but it's still adjusting. Well, adjust carefully. And bring your complicated man to the community center sometime. I want to assess him properly. Maya ended the call and found Damien watching her with amusement. Your friend wants to assess me? She's protective and nosy, dangerous combination. I like her already. Eli reappeared, backpack slung over one shoulder. Can I go to the park? I want to see if Jake's there. I haven't seen him in 3 days and we were supposed to work on our fort. Maya's instinct was to say no, to keep him close, to protect him from any possible threat, but Damien's hand on her arm stopped her. "Let him go," he said quietly. "He needs normal. And he'll be safe. I'll have someone watching." Invisible watching or obvious watching? So invisible he won't even know they're there. Maya looked at her son, who was vibrating with the need to return to his regular life. "Okay, but home by dinner." "Yes!" Eli ran for the door, then stopped and turned back. "Are you staying?" he asked Damien. "Do you want me to?" "Yeah, I mean, if you're going to be around, might as well start now, right?" "Right," Damien agreed. Eli grinned and left, and suddenly Maya was alone with Damien in the quiet house. "He's remarkably well-adjusted for a kid whose life just got turned upside down," Damien observed. "He's always been good at adapting. It's one of his strengths." Maya moved to the living room, needing something to do with her hands. She started straightening cushions that didn't need straightening. "You don't have to stay. I know you have businesses to run, things to handle. I have people handling those things. Right now, my priority is here." "For how long?" "As long as it takes." Damien caught her hand, stopping the nervous tidying. "Maya, talk to me. What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking this is moving too fast. I'm thinking we went from strangers to co-parents to whatever we are now in the span of 3 weeks. I'm thinking I don't know how to do this." "Neither do I. But we can figure it out together." "What if we can't? What if we try and it fails and Eli gets caught in the middle of our mess?" "Then we make sure our mess doesn't hurt him. We put him first, always, even if that means stepping back from each other." Damien pulled her closer. "But Maya, I don't think we'll fail. I think we're both too stubborn and too invested to let that happen." "Stubborn isn't the same as compatible." "No, but love is. And whether you want to admit it or not, you still love me. I can see it in the way you look at me, in the way you kissed me last night, in the way you're terrified right now because you know if you let yourself fall, it'll be completely." Maya wanted to deny it, but she was tired of lying. "I never stopped loving you. I just learned to live with the absence." "You don't have to live with absence anymore. I'm here. I'm staying, and I'm asking you to take a chance on us. And if your world comes back to threaten us again, then I'll destroy whatever threatens us, just like I did with Chen. Maya, I will burn down the entire world before I let anyone hurt you or Eli. That's not hyperbole. That's a promise." The intensity in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, it felt like safety in its purest form, absolute, unwavering protection. "I need time," she said, "not to decide if I want this, but to figure out how to let myself have it. Take all the time you need. I've waited 8 years. I can wait a little longer." Over the next few weeks, they built a routine. Damien rented a house on the outskirts of Haven's Rest, small, private, close enough to be present but far enough to give Maya space. He showed up for dinner 3 nights a week, took Eli to soccer practice on Saturdays, and slowly integrated himself into their lives with the patience of someone who understood that trust was earned through consistency. Maya watched him with Eli and saw a father emerging from the powerful man, someone who listened when Eli talked about school drama, who helped with homework without taking over, who taught their son about responsibility and ethics without preaching. Damien was careful never to undermine Maya's authority, never to make promises he couldn't keep, never to let his business intrude on the time he spent with them. And slowly, carefully, Maya let her walls come down. They went on their first real date 6 weeks after Damien's arrival, dinner at a restaurant 2 towns over where no one knew them. They talked about everything except Eli, rediscovering each other as adults who'd both changed and grown. Damien told her about the businesses he'd built, the legitimate empire he was creating. Maya told him about the community center, the seniors she'd befriended, the small satisfactions of building something meaningful, even if it wasn't profitable. "You're happy here," Damien observed. "I am, or I was. Now I don't know what I am." "You're someone figuring out how to integrate 2 different lives. It's okay to be uncertain." "When did you get so wise?" 8 years of therapy and self-reflection. Turns out almost dying gives you perspective." They laughed, and it felt easy in a way nothing had felt easy in years. The kiss at the end of the date was inevitable, familiar, and new all at once. Damien walked her to her door and pulled her close, and Maya let herself sink into it without overthinking. "I want this. she whispered against his mouth. I want us. I'm just scared. Being scared means it matters, and things that matter are worth being scared for. He kissed her again, soft and sweet. We'll go slow. We'll be careful. And we'll build something that lasts. But the universe, as it turned out, had other plans. 2 months after Damien's arrival, Maya got a call from an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Maya Lane? A woman's voice, professional and cool. Yes? This is Detective Sarah Chen with the Financial Crimes Division. I'm calling about Damien Voss. We have some questions regarding his business operations, and your name has come up in our investigation. I'd like to schedule a time to speak with you. Maya's blood went cold. I don't know anything about his business operations. Nevertheless, we'd appreciate your cooperation. This can be voluntary, or we can make it official. Your choice. Maya ended the call and immediately dialed Damien. He answered on the first ring. They called you, he said. Not a question. How did you know? Because they've been investigating me for 6 months. I knew they'd eventually contact people close to me. I'm sorry, Maya. I should have warned you. What do they want? They want evidence that my businesses are fronts for criminal activity. They want connections to organized crime, money laundering, any charge they can make stick. Damien's voice stayed calm. They won't find anything because there's nothing to find. I've been legitimate for years, but the investigation is inconvenient. Inconvenient? Maya's voice rose. They're investigating you for financial crimes and you call it inconvenient? Because that's all it is. An investigation that will turn up nothing and eventually close. But in the meantime, they'll interview people, make implications, try to pressure someone into saying something incriminating. He paused. Don't talk to them without a lawyer. I'll send someone over this afternoon to brief you on your rights. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Your world following us, creating problems. This isn't my world. This is law enforcement doing their job. And yes, it's uncomfortable, but it's also temporary and manageable. Trust me, Maya. I've dealt with this before. But Maya didn't feel reassured. She felt exposed, vulnerable, like the safe life she'd built was crumbling around her. When Eli came home from school, he knew immediately something was wrong. What happened? Maya explained about the detective, watching Eli's expression shift from concern to calculation. So they're investigating Damien's businesses to see if they're legitimate, Eli summarized. And they want to talk to you because you're close to him, thinking maybe you have information that could help their case. That's about right. But you don't have information because Damien keeps his business separate from us. Exactly. Then this is just procedure. They'll ask questions, you'll tell them you don't know anything, and they'll move on to the next person on their list. Eli shrugged. Doesn't seem like a big deal. It's a big deal because it proves that being connected to your father brings complications. Mom, everything brings complications. At least these are legal complications. Better than criminal ones, right? Maya stared at her son. When did you become the reasonable one? I've always been reasonable. You're just stressed. Eli hugged her. It'll be fine. Damien's smart. He wouldn't let us get dragged into something dangerous. But Damien arrived an hour later with a lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia, who spent 2 hours explaining Maya's rights, coaching her on how to handle the interview, and making it clear that the detective had nothing concrete and was fishing for leverage. They do this with every major investigation, Patricia explained. Interview family, friends, associates. Most people don't know anything useful, but occasionally someone says something that opens a new angle. Your job is to be truthful but minimal. Answer what's asked, nothing more. The interview happened 3 days later at a coffee shop Maya chose specifically because it was public and non-threatening. Detective Chen was younger than Maya expected, professional but not unkind. Thank you for meeting with me, Chen said. I know this is uncomfortable. What do you want to know? Maya asked. How long have you known Damien Voss? We dated briefly 9 years ago, lost contact for 8 years, reconnected recently. Why did you lose contact? Personal reasons. We wanted different things. And the recent reconnection? He discovered he had a son. He wanted to be part of his life. Chen made notes. Has Mr. Voss discussed his business operations with you? No. Has he given you money, gifts, assets of any kind? He pays child support. Everything else I handle myself. Has he ever asked you to hold money, transfer funds, or engage in any financial transactions on his behalf? No. The questions continued for 20 minutes, all variations on the same theme. Maya answered honestly, minimally, and by the end, Chen looked frustrated. Ms. Lane, if you know anything about illegal activities. I don't. Damien keeps his business completely separate from our personal life. I don't know what he does day to day. I don't know his associates. I don't know his financial structures. I'm his son's mother. That's the extent of our connection. It was a lie, but one Maya told easily, because the truth was more complicated than any investigator could understand. Chen closed her notebook. If that changes, if you become aware of anything illegal, you have a legal obligation to report it. I understand. The detective left, and Maya sat in the coffee shop trying to process what had just happened. Her phone buzzed. Text from Damien. How did it go? Fine. She had nothing. Told you. They're grasping at straws. But Maya didn't feel relieved. She felt like she'd just lied to law enforcement to protect a man whose world she still didn't fully understand. That night, after Eli went to bed, Damien came over. Maya met him at the door with arms crossed. We need to talk, she said. I know. They sat on the porch, and Maya laid it out. I lied to a federal investigator today. Not a big lie, but a lie nonetheless. I told her our connection was minimal, when the truth is, I'm falling in love with you all over again. I told her you keep your business separate, when the truth is you've integrated yourself into every part of our lives. I lied to protect you. I never asked you to lie. You didn't have to, because I knew that telling the truth would complicate things, would give them angles to pursue, would potentially hurt you, so I lied. And that scares me, Damien, because where does it end? What else will I lie about to protect you? Damien was quiet for a long moment. You're right to be scared. And you're right that my presence complicates your life in ways you shouldn't have to deal with. But Maya, I'm not asking you to compromise your integrity. If the investigation had found anything real, if there was actual criminal activity, I'd want you to tell the truth. But there isn't. My businesses are legitimate. The investigation will confirm that and close. And when the next investigation comes, when the next threat appears, when does it stop? It doesn't. Not completely. That's the cost of being with me. He turned to face her. But the benefits? A real family, genuine partnership, someone who will protect you and Eli with everything I have. Don't those outweigh the complications? I don't know anymore. Then figure it out. Take time, think it through, decide what you can live with. But Maya, be honest with yourself. You've spent 8 years running from complications. At some point, you have to stop running and decide what you're willing to fight for. He left, and Maya sat alone on the porch, staring at the ocean and trying to figure out what she wanted. The answer came 2 days later in the most unexpected way. Eli had a soccer game, the regional championship his team had been working toward all season. Maya and Damien both planned to attend, sitting separately to avoid drawing attention, but both there to support him. The game was close, intense, and Eli played with the focus and determination that defined everything he did. With 2 minutes left and the score tied, he broke free down the field, controlled a pass, and scored the winning goal. The crowd erupted. Eli's teammates mobbed him, and Maya, watching from the sidelines, saw Damien jump to his feet, saw the pure joy on his face, saw him turn to her with an expression that said everything words couldn't. In that moment, Maya understood. This was what family looked like. Messy, complicated, full of joy and fear and love so intense it was terrifying. And yes, Damien's world brought complications, but it also brought protection, partnership, and presence. She'd spent 8 years trying to give Eli a safe, simple life, but maybe what he really needed was a complete one. Both parents, present and engaged, fighting for him together instead of separately. After the game, Eli ran to them both, flushed with victory. Did you see? Did you see the goal? We saw, Maya and Damien said in unison. Eli looked between them. You're both here, together. We are, Maya confirmed. Does that mean you figured things out? Maya looked at Damien, saw the hope in his eyes, and made her decision. We're working on it. Good, because I'd really like to have both my parents at the same time instead of having to split them up. Eli grinned. Plus, we won the championship. We should celebrate together. They went for ice cream, the three of them, sitting at a picnic table outside the shop, talking about the game and school and everything except the complicated questions that still needed answers. And for those 2 hours, they were just a family celebrating a victory. Later, after Eli went to bed exhausted and happy, Damien and Maya sat on the porch again. "I'm scared," Maya said. "I'm scared of your world, scared of investigations, scared of threats. But I'm more scared of spending the rest of my life wondering what we could have been." "So what does that mean?" "It means we try, really try. Not just co-parenting, not just seeing where things go, but actually building something together, a real partnership." Damien pulled her close. "I can work with that. But I need honesty, complete honesty. If there's a threat, I need to know. If there's an investigation, I need to know. No more protecting me from uncomfortable truths." "Agreed. Full transparency. And Eli comes first, always. Before us, before your business, before everything. I wouldn't have it any other way." Maya kissed him, and it felt like sealing a promise. "Okay then, let's do this." The investigation closed 6 weeks later with no charges filed. The detective sent a brief email stating that they'd found no evidence of criminal activity and the case was resolved. Damien forwarded the email to Maya with a single word. "Told you." Maya responded, "Smug looks bad on you." "Everything looks good on me." She laughed and didn't disagree. Over the following months, they built something new. Damien sold his rental and bought a house 10 minutes from Maya's. Close enough for constant presence, far enough to maintain some independence. They established routines. Family dinners 3 times a week, weekend activities together, space for Maya and Eli's established life. Damien started the process of legally establishing paternity and securing parental rights. Maya didn't fight it. Eli deserved to have his father's name, his heritage, his complete identity. 6 months after reconnecting, Damien proposed. Not with grand gestures or public displays, but quietly on Maya's porch with Eli as their witness. "I know we're doing this backward," Damien said. "Kid first, relationship second, marriage third. But I want all of it. I want the legal recognition, the commitment, the public acknowledgement that you're mine and I'm yours and Eli is ours." "Is that a question or a statement?" Maya asked. "It's both. Maya Lane, will you marry me?" Eli bounced on his toes. "Say yes, Mom. He's been planning this for weeks. It's getting painful to watch." Maya laughed through tears. "Yes. Absolutely yes." They married 3 months later in a small ceremony on the beach with just close friends and family. Victor served as Damien's best man and cried when he thought no one was looking. Shayna was Maya's maid of honor and assessed Damien thoroughly before declaring him acceptable, but I'm watching you. Eli was the ring bearer and took his job with extreme seriousness, delivering the rings with the same focus he applied to everything. When the officiant pronounced them married, Eli cheered louder than anyone. The reception was small, intimate, perfect. And when Damien pulled Maya onto the makeshift dance floor, she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. "Any regrets?" Damien murmured against her ear. "About 1,000, but marrying you isn't one of them." "I'll take it." They danced while Eli ran around with the few other kids present, and Maya watched their son, confident, happy, loved by both parents, and knew she'd made the right choice. A year later, Damien formally changed direction with his business empire. He established a foundation dedicated to helping at-risk youth, using his resources and connections to create opportunities for kids who needed second chances. He brought Maya on as a co-director, combining her community experience with his financial capability. "You're using your power for good now," she observed one day while reviewing grant applications. "I'm using it for us, for the legacy I want Eli to inherit, for the life I want to build with you." Damien kissed her temple. "Besides, it turns out helping people is more satisfying than destroying enemies." "Who knew?" Eli, now 10 and somehow even more observant than before, thrived. He excelled in school, made friends, played sports, and showed early interest in both business and social justice. He asked hard questions about his father's past and accepted complicated answers with remarkable maturity. "Do you regret the things you did?" Eli asked Damien one night over dinner. "Some of them. Others were necessary at the time. But I regret the person I was before I learned there were better ways to use power. Like the foundation. Like the foundation. Like this family. Like choosing to build instead of destroy. Eli nodded thoughtfully. I think I want to do that too. Build things. Help people. But maybe without the criminal complications. Excellent plan, Maya said dryly. They laughed, and it felt like victory. This normal conversation, this easy family dynamic, this life they'd built from secrets and separation. 2 years after reconnecting, on a quiet Sunday morning, Maya woke to find Damien already awake, watching her. What? She mumbled. Just thinking about how close I came to missing this, to never knowing I had a son, to never finding you again. His voice went soft. 8 years, Maya. We lost 8 years because we were both too scared to trust that love could survive complexity. We got them back. Not the same years, but good ones. Better than good. Perfect in their imperfection. Maya rolled toward him. You're being sentimental. I'm being honest. You and Eli are the best things that ever happened to me. I just wish I'd known sooner. We're here now. That's what matters. He pulled her close, and they lay together listening to the house wake up around them. Eli moving around in his room. The coffee maker Victor had programmed starting automatically. The ocean in the distance. This was the life Maya had spent 8 years running from and 2 years building toward. It wasn't simple. It wasn't without complications. But it was real, and it was theirs, and it was enough. Later that day, Eli had another soccer game. Both parents attended, sitting together now without concern for appearances. When Eli scored, they cheered as one. When his team won, they celebrated together. After the game, walking to the car with Eli between them, Maya caught Damien's eye over their son's head. He smiled, and she smiled back, and in that moment, everything they'd survived, the separation, the fear, the threats, the complications, felt worth it. Because they'd come through it together. Because they'd chosen each other despite every reason not to. Because they'd built something sustainable from the wreckage of what came before. Can we get pizza? Eli asked. The team's going to Mario's to celebrate. Of course, Maya said. Can I invite both of you, like, as my parents, together? Damien ruffled Eli's hair. We'd be honored. At the restaurant, surrounded by Eli's teammates and their families, Maya watched Damien interact with other parents and saw him fully integrated into their small-town life. No one looked at him as a threat. No one whispered about his past. He was just Eli's father, present, engaged, normal. This was what victory looked like, not the destruction of enemies or the accumulation of power, but the quiet triumph of being allowed to be ordinary, of building a family in daylight instead of shadow, of choosing love over fear and presence over protection. That night, after tucking Eli into bed, Maya and Damien stood in their kitchen, no longer separate houses, having moved into a new home large enough for all three of them 6 months earlier, and reflected on how far they'd come. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I'd never left? Maya asked. If I'd stayed 8 years ago and let you protect us from the beginning? Every day. But I think this way was better. We both needed to grow separately before we could build together. You needed to prove you could survive alone. I needed to prove I could be more than violence. Damien wrapped his arms around her from behind. We're stronger now than we would have been then. You really believe that? I know it, because we've both been tested and survived. Because we chose each other with full knowledge of the costs. Because our foundation is built on truth instead of illusion. Maya leaned back against him, feeling safe in ways she never had before. I love you. I should say it more often. I love you too, and you say it every day in the way you trust me with our son, with our life, with our future. They stood like that for a long time, wrapped in each other while the house settled around them. Outside, the ocean continued its eternal rhythm. Inside, a family, fractured and reformed, tested and proven, stood together in the home they'd built from impossible choices and unexpected grace. This was their story. Not perfect, not simple, but absolutely, completely theirs. And when Eli eventually asked, years later, how his parents had managed to make it work despite everything against them, Maya would tell him the truth, that love wasn't about avoiding complexity, but about choosing to face it together. That family wasn't about perfection, but about presence. That sometimes the greatest victories came not from destroying what threatened you, but from building something strong enough to withstand it. And Damien would add that some loves were worth fighting for, even when fighting meant patience instead of force, trust instead of control, and partnership instead of protection. Together, they'd built a life that proved both truths could coexist, that power could be tempered with gentleness, that danger could be balanced with safety, and that two people brave enough to try could create something extraordinary from the ruins of what almost destroyed them. The storm that brought Eli into the world had passed years ago, but the family born in that chaos had weathered every storm since, and would weather every storm to come, because they'd learned the most important lesson of all, that staying wasn't weakness, that presence wasn't surrender, that choosing each other every single day was the bravest thing any of them could do, and they'd keep choosing each other for all the years ahead, building their legacy not in shadow, but in light, together, always together, exactly as they were meant to be.